By the way, this is as well as I write. I don't know if you picked up on that earlier. So I won't say overseas because there are some Canada and Mexico you don't have to cross the sea. Okay, you guys with me? So we want to know the percentage of all Grossmont students who have gone to a different country, right? You guys with me? Okay, I like it. What would that represent? What would we call the group of all Grossmont students? That would be the population. I like it. So the population is the entire group of people or things that you want to say something about. This is really bad, Jeff. I know. I haven't had to write in a long time. So, for our example, oh my God, you're brand new, aren't you? You suck a lot. Yeah, I'll do it. Our example, oh, you're still bad, would be all Grossmont students. Anybody have any idea how many Grossmont students there are?
A lot.
Can you be less specific? Can you? Anybody have a good guess as to how many total students are enrolled at Grossmont College? Give me a guess.
10,000.
That's a decent guess. It's about 18,000, 19,000. I don't know where the numbers have fallen at this moment. Normally it's around 19. The highest we've been is like 20,000 something. So yeah, there's like 19,000. So when you're looking for a spot later in the day, you're like, that's wise, freaking 19,000. So do you have time? If I was to tell you, go find this out, do you have the time to talk to every Grossmont student? Would you want to do that? No. Hell no. And if you do, maybe maybe you should get into statistics, because a lot of it is that. But, so what do we normally do then? Instead of talking to the whole population or looking at the entire population, we take a sample. So a lot of you guys come in, you know some of the basics of these words. So sample, of course, is what? In general. Where do you get a sample from? Huh? I love you. But in general, where do we pick the sample from? So where are we going to pick our sample from, for example? No, not specifically like the location. What group are we going to select from? Population. I love it. So the sample is a subgroup of the population. I love you. In that parking lot over there, I'm going to tell them. No, I don't. We don't need to get specific yet. So the sample in general is a subgroup of a population. There are a lot of different ways to pick a sample. We will go into most of them, not at the moment. We're not at that point yet. So would you agree with me that you guys are a sample of Grossmont students? Yes, thankfully, right? If you're not, this is bad, you better go apply. And if you're reading, we'll take it. Are you guys a good sample? I'm not asking if you're good people. I'm asking, are you a good sample? Why might you not be a good sample?
So small. Too small of a sample.
Small is actually not a bad size, which is something that people don't really get. They're like, you only talk to 1,000 people, there's 300 and something million Americans. Actually, that's a good size sample. But that's something I hope you'll understand better as we go along. But size is okay, to be honest. Believe it or not. Bigger is better for sample sizes, but this is okay. Somebody else said something. Why is this a bad sample? Or could this be a bad sample?
Because we're all taking statistics.
Good. You're all taking statistics, right? Now, what would that have to do with this? Well, you don't know. If you're not trying, what are we trying to do with the sample related to the population? What are we trying to do? We want a sample that does what for the population? Represents. Kick ass, right? I was like, I don't know how to get that word out of you, but there it came. I like it. You guys with me? One reason you guys might not represent the population is because since you're all taking a stats course, there's something similar around you that other students don't have. Not everybody has to, not everybody's going to take a stats course, and maybe there's differences that would affect this. I don't know. Like for example, you're taking a stats course, but you're also taking a stats course at 7 a.m. Right? That's special. I'm teaching one at 7 a.m. That's special too, right? So I got to make sure to get my caffeine at about 6. Okay, you guys with me? You're also on campus. Not every student's on campus. Or I love it. You're either online student or you're on ground. I love that phrase. Have you ever heard that phrase? It's like instead of having a floating class, you're actually on the ground. So a subgroup, so let's say we use us. We're going to use us. But we understand that we're not a good sample. Because we're all bad people. So I'm going to take our class. Not random. We're going to talk more about, let's talk about random right now. Random sampling is the best sampling because that is going to end up having the highest chance of representing the population. So you guys are not a random sample because of everything we just said. You're together for a reason already. But if I want the sample to be really random, I want every part of my population to have a chance to get in my sample. If my sample is this class, there are people that don't take statistics. They would never have a chance. There are people that can't take a 7 a.m. class. They would never have a chance. You guys good? So a random sample is one where every element of the population has an equal chance to get into the sample. I love it. See how slowly I said that? That's a note to take. Or not, it's up to you. All right. So now, once I've got my sample, I got you guys. You're what's called a convenience sample. That should make complete sense. If I'm the one doing the study, holy shit, this is convenient. I got Grossmont students right here. So the next thing I'm going to do, what do I do now that I've got you guys together? Thank you for coming. What do I do now? Yes, ask a freaking question, right? That makes sense. I've got you all here. I'm going to ask a question, probably one that will answer that question, right? So the question I ask is related to what's called the variable. So in this case, what question am I going to ask? No. Not really. What I'm going to ask, like each one of you. Yeah, have you left the U.S., right? I like it. So in this case, that would be the variable. Have you leaving the U.S., yes or no? Question mark. And then the answers to that question. The variable is related to the question I ask. The answers would be what we call the data. I like it. So variable is related to the question I ask. The answers I get are the data. Good Lord, Jim. Let's put a little effort in there. There we go, buddy. All right, so let me ask. So raise your hand if this is a yes. Have you been out of the U.S.? Oh, scheisse. Do I want to count? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 30, 34. Yay. Ouch, that hurt. All right. So we got 34 yeses. Ah, shit. How many people are there? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 22, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 40, 42, 44, 46, 47. All right. out of 47 total. Somebody help me out. What is that? Come on, math boy. You should. I don't know what the hell that is. I would say 69.7%. I don't know. I'm making that shit up. What are we? Anybody gonna help me? No? Nobody's gonna help me? Anybody bring a calculator? What is it? 72.3? Well, it's not even close. All right. That number that I just wrote would be called a statistic. The number. So this is the data. This is the data. That's the answers. Right? When I analyze the data and I get a percentage or an average, we call that a statistic. Because what is this describing? Yeah, sorry, I heard it. What's it describe? You guys. And what are you guys? You are the sample. Statistic describes a sample. Appreciate that shit. That doesn't happen often in math. Hey, SS, amazing. Statistic describes a sample. So what can I not really get, but I can get a feel for, is what describes the population. And thankfully, what describes the population starts with a freaking P. Population is described by a parameter. I like it. So if I said 72.3% of my sample has left the U.S., that's a statistic. If I said 72.3% of all Grossmont students has left the U.S., that is a parameter, because it's describing a population. Now, I can't do that. You guys with me? I can't just go, oh, there you go. 72.3% of all Grossmont students. Even if you guys were a good sample, I couldn't do that. Well, so what do we normally do? We're going to do this in Chapter 8. We're going to learn this formula that gets us here. Anybody paying any attention at all to the upcoming election? Anybody planning on voting for the first time? You know, we're in a freaky-ass situation with the political environment nowadays. So, good luck. Wow. Anybody paying any attention to polls stuff at all? And no, you guys are like, no. Information, who wants that shit? But if you ever see a poll and it says like 40-something% for Biden, 40-something% for Bernie, and at the bottom it says plus or minus 4%. You guys ever seen that? If you have never seen that, I'm going to show you eventually a poll. I'm going to show you where they do that. So they give or take this much, because they can't be sure. They built it off of a sample, but there's a formula that tells us what that give or take should be. They don't just go, I don't freaking know, let's say plus or minus 5. No, there's a formula that tells me what that is going to be. Woo! All right. I think that might be enough for today. So if you are a waitlister or a crasher, come up here with me. We're going to go back to my office real quick and add you in. Anything else, come up and see me if you need a question. Let's see, did you survive? Yes.